did a trio of specials for Discovery Channel on the 100th anniversary of King Tut's discovery. It was found in November of 22. So we made 3 shows in 2022 that aired on the anniversary. And I went over and I, as a network executive, I poked my nose in other people's business and watched the shoots unfold, and then made the deals with the archaeologists and the antiquities people, which is a lot of backsheesh, a lot of greasing of palms. So my experience of Cairo and Egypt has shifted a lot because I do business there now, and I kind of know antiquities people, and I know the camera people and the sound people and how to get the permits. And I've been to Giza a dozen times, and Saqqara and Cairo, or Valley of the Kings. I don't know how many times I've been there, a couple dozen. I just love those places. So I know my way around. So I also have friends and colleagues and experts and filmmakers that I can call when I get there, both for work and for pleasure.
Cool. Very nice. I don't know, like, it's incredible. It's a lot of stories, and it's just like, I don't know from where to go, like, a little bit, but actually you touched the point that I also wanted to ask you about, and it's the whole being gay in Egypt. I'm sure it was not easy. As you said, you were not out at that point of time, but do you remember any story or any moment that you say, okay, or has it changed during the years also, like this? Have you felt that it started
Unfortunately not. I mean,
opening? Or
still pretty repressive over there, but it's always tougher in these places. It's not just Cairo or Egypt. It's Turkey, certainly Syria and Jordan. I've been back to Iran in a long time because it's not safe. But the repression is more on the local people than us. Now, they still try to entrap you. Like, you wouldn't want to use the gay apps when you're in those places because it could be entrapment of people, mostly to entrap locals for shakedown of money and that kind of thing. But I do remember I was out when I went there, and I think if I talked to a few people in the business, I told them, but I certainly didn't share with people. But yet I was hit on all the time when I was traveling through Luxor and through small Antalya, Turkey. And a lot of older men, very crude things in the park. They would do, things. Basically, they were saying, let's go behind a tree and do it. And at first, I was like, why me? And what do I look that gay? And then I realized, no, I'm a Westerner, so therefore we're decadent already. And I leave in a week. I'm traveling. I'm male. I'm leaving a week, and so there's no
risk
residue for that. No risk. I'm out of here in 2 weeks. They can't pick up somebody at the mosque, but they can pick up this American who's only here for a week doing a film or just wandering around Turkey on their own. So a lot of people, will kind of do those kind of things, and it points to their own repression. And that's what made me feel really sad. Where so many of these people just looking for love, they're looking for release, but they have to do it so surreptitiously and in such a sort of like vulgar and crude way, where I wonder if any of them have ever found love, because I don't know where you would back then in a small town. So, the repression is there, and it was real and probably still is. I still don't, when I go there, certainly the people I work with in Cairo and elsewhere know that I'm gay, but I don't advertise it. My husband has been with me a few times, but we always just kind of treat it with just respect as anybody would, with no heavy petting or kissing, on the tram and that kind of stuff. And that's just out of respect for the culture.
Makes sense. When does Turkey comes in this whole equation? Because you said to me before that you lived also sometime in Turkey, and you were there for some time.
I started making films. One of the people I met at film school was a cameraman, still a good friend of mine and still a cameraman from Turkey, from Istanbul. And he always wanted to do some documentaries about some sites there, Ephesus and Troy and places like that. So we went over together. We made a few films that we sold. And he lives there in a small place. I was just there 2 months ago writing my new novel, a place called Dacia, which is down south in the Aegean. And I rent a little place nearby. And so I spent a lot of time with him. And then eventually I rented a room there when I was working on my films, because that's where we're shooting. And if you do archaeology work, you don't, and if you're doing it independently, you need time to shoot it. It's not like you're going over to somewhere and getting an interview, a sit-down interview. You have to see stuff happening. So you need to be there a lot, and you need to be shooting a lot. You need to be on location. So I would spend weeks and weeks and weeks at archaeological digs in Ephesus and such, hoping for them to find something. Sometimes they did, sometimes they didn't. So that's how I really got to know Turkey. And Turkey, a little more Western than Egypt was. My husband and I talked about where we would retire, and Turkey is certainly on the list. Even though it is Islamic and we don't know what it's like to be an Asian gay couple there, nothing, no problems with the locals, but I do love that Eastern Mediterranean. Turkey definitely feels much more Western thinking than it does Egypt, which definitely feels African and Arab, and just a little rougher. The religion and the repression, I suppose, for lack of a better word, looms larger in Egypt than it does in Turkey.
Can't imagine. Never been to Egypt, unfortunately, but my girlfriend actually worked
You're in
there
Athens,
for some time.
close. You're in Athens,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
A
I mean,
2 hour
Athens.
ride.
It's the next trip for sure. Like I actually already give it to her as a present, so I need to do it. It's already set in stone. But we'll see when it will happen. Although it's one
When
of
you get
my
close, I'll give you some tips.
definitely. I will write to you for sure.
Okay, you know where
Yeah,
to find.
maybe just before we jump to the second part, although we've been entering a little bit back and then on filmmaking, and now that you're writing novels, I would like you to ask a little bit of like already maybe as a pre introduction to recommendations to Cairo and Egypt, for myself, but also for all the listeners. Do you remember any specific local tradition or practices in Egypt that you'd like, I don't know, that left some impression and you like?
I know there's culture, and I mean, certainly, Cairo is a very different place. If you go outside of Cairo, you get into the countryside very quickly, and that's where a lot of the ruins are. Abydos and places like that are wonderful. It's changed so much that a lot of that old world Arab culture has disappeared. But what I do remember learning from Egypt is just the sense of patience. The culture is a culture of patience. Things don't happen very quickly. So when you want to buy something at the market, at the souk, make sure you have time to sit there and have coffee and talk to people. You'll eventually get your deal out. But I love that sense of slow pace they have there. Even in a place as crazy as Cairo, there's a sense that I recognize as a Westerner, it's hard to break, this impatience.
Mm.
And all of the Middle East is like that, where even if you're frustrated about the lack of progress, that is just how things happen. It's the lassitude of the heat. It is the chance they have very much else to do other than sell their T-shirts or whatever else they're doing. But there's joy in that waiting. There's joy in just those quiet moments, which sounds a bit corny. It sounds like it's a Hallmark card, but it is true where some of the best experience I had, like those chickpea farmers I'm talking to waiting for a bus, they come out of not being anxious, which is really, really hard as a Westerner to do because we want shit done 2 minutes ago. And I think I have learned a lot about that part of myself by spending so much time in the Middle East and in Egypt, is that things happen at a different pace. And that's part of the joy because you're sitting there having tea in a cafe for a while, playing backgammon. And that's where people get to shine. That's where they get to know each other. So I don't know if I guess it certainly is cultural, but it's not like it's a must do kind of thing. If you're talking about these are the places you go, I could certainly give you that list too. But Egypt is a place where it's been around for 4,000 years. What's the rush?
Yeah, not going anywhere. No? I actually have, when you talk about these kind of things, it feels very close to Athens in certain ways of doing things, and
Yeah,
it's just like
Mediterranean culture. Yeah, Mediterranean culture is very similar.
yeah, it I'm originally from Barcelona, and I think a city like Barcelona, although it's Mediterranean, it arrived to this point of stress and needing to rush things, and everything is like and everything needs to happen yes now. And to be honest, Athens has this piece of like, I don't know, a lot of people, a lot of experts that I interviewed here in the podcast, one of the things that they say about Athens is that you sit down for a coffee and you can be with the same coffee for 4 hours. And this doesn't happen anywhere else in Europe. Would any restaurant or coffee allow you to be 4 hours sitting in the same chair with a single coffee?
Yeah, Athens is, all of Greece, I would say, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it has a lot of eyes towards Eastern Mediterranean and the Mideast, as much so as it does Western Europe. Even though they're part of that world, they're part of Europe. That sense of ancient culture and that sense of time going slowly. It still has a grip on Greece, where it even doesn't, even in Italy, I say, or certainly in Spain. It still exists. I think Mediterranean culture, people go slow because it gets 120 friggin' degrees out, and who wants to rush anywhere in August? So,
Yes.
part of it is just your body can't do it.
Absolutely. What about music? Are you a music person? Do you have any recommendations? If you liked this short video out of the full episode, you can find the link to it around here and in the description below. Of course, if you are also interested in checking out other episodes, please subscribe and like.